Hi, welcome to Together, the podcast where we all get to evolve through sacred relationship. Today is going to be juicy because this is the first episode to a series, our first series. And the series is going to be toe curling spiritual sex. In today's episode, why isn't she into it? Understanding what she needs to open more and receive you deeper. In this episode, we are going to be learning exactly how to go from having the feminine feeling reserved or just not into sex to spreading open and deeply satisfied.
So we're going to cover 3 points. The first point is we're going to dive into the lies that men and women have been told about the role of emotions in sexual pleasure, sexual experience, and also the impact of those lies on our sexual experiences. In the second point, we're going to dive into how does the masculine actually embrace and move towards his own emotions and the feminine's emotions, and how does the feminine actually work with her emotional world for sexual alchemy. And then we're going to dive into the third point is how do we embody sexual alchemy through our emotional world.
And you're going to want to make sure that you stay till the end because we're going to describe how in our relationship that sexual alchemy has led to juicier sexual connection and life-activating orgasms. Yeah. And if you've been listening to these episodes already and you're listening to this one and you want to go more personal, we have an online Together community where we support couples. So you can scroll down to the show notes. There'll be a link down there.
And so before we dive in, if any of you are watching on video, you might see this beautiful black eye that I have. And we have a now 3-year-old little boy, and I got nailed in the face with a oak wood bear. So I'm deeply in the journey of learning about the testosterone of toddlerhood, and we'll probably do a podcast episode on that at some point.
Yeah, and just as you're listening, we really ask that you hold hold our son with so much love and tenderness and care because it's perfectly appropriate that he has these movements and expressions. He has no impulse control at this phase of development, and when he loses mama's attention, his body finds a way to get it, and he got it.
Yeah, and so we're working with it. We're helping guide it, and while welcoming how connected he is with his body. Yeah. And I'm okay. I'm healing. Mike's been loving me in it, and I've been getting some good support. So the journeys. So diving in. So we want to start off with diving into the lies that we have been told as men and women. And this is one that comes into, for us, when we're working with couples, it comes in constantly in our work with couples. And it's something that both Mike and I have journeyed within ourselves. And this is the lie that we have all been told that, having a juicy sex life is really about being able to put aside our emotional world or having boundaries. Like that doesn't really belong in the sexual expression. And, for the feminine, I can speak to this. We've really been told the story that, when we're engaging sexually, there's certain things that we can bring into that space and there's certain things we can't. And we've definitely been told a story that if we become too emotional, if we become too needy, if we show too much of that emotional world, that then the masculine is going to be turned off, that we're not being fun, we're not being sexy. And so we've been really told to keep a big chunk of who we are and what we experience in ourselves aside and to only embody, the part of us that is fun, playful, sexually aroused, erotic, and that only those parts are welcome. And this has really affected the feminine in her being able to surrender, open, fully embody life energy. And we're going to go into that a little bit, but I want to hear, Mike, what's the lies that the masculine's been told?
Well, I'd say a lot of men have really learned what sex looks like through pornography.
Right.
And it's such a dysfunctional way to adopt beliefs of what it should look like. Because, when we look in the pornography world, it's all about big, like performance, and it doesn't show the whole picture of actual love making and sexual alchemy. And I'd say, there's a lot of internalized shame for the masculine because the story that they're told is they must always be on. They must be a certain size. If they're not, they're inadequate or something's wrong with them. There's been so many stories around their physical appearance.
Always having to be hard.
Yeah, that's a big lie and story that men are told is you must be this big, you must always be hard, and your partner must have rolling orgasms every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the impact of these stories, what I see for women, basically what will happen is if you have been told and you believe, whether you believe this consciously or you believe this unconsciously inside, if you believe that you have to repress and shut down parts of you, or that if big emotions like sadness, anger, grief come up in lovemaking, or maybe even not wanting to make love, or a part of you that wants to pull away, if we believe on any level that those parts, if they come up, it means that we're failing, we're not being sexual, that now it's not going to lead to something good, the masculine's not going to welcome us, we're not being in our sexualness, if those kinds of things arise, then basically what will happen is over time, we will open less and less. Our body will open into the alchemy of sexuality less and less, and we won't want to make love. We won't want to. We'll want to avoid it. And I know this in myself. Whenever I start to feel an avoidance of lovemaking, I have to then stop and notice, because it's the programming, right? Okay, it's because if I open right now, there isn't this like sexy, juicy, playful, sex kitten that's going to come out. It's actually like a big emotion or a big hurt or a really tender part that's going to emerge. And then, so I'm avoiding moving towards it because that's what's there. And, I'm sure most, if not all women listening know this experience. And I know it from my 20s and my teens, is where, those parts want to emerge, but we're like, no, you can't. Like, I can't show that part right now. We're being sexual. So you try to repress it and hold it back and only go into like being sexual. But you can only do that for so long. The feminine can only do that for so long before it's like you're drier. It's not as pleasurable. You're distracted. You're not feeling emotionally connected. And then resentment builds up. You start to feel resentful. You start to feel lonely. You start to feel like you're not being pleasured in the way that you need to. You're not getting as much pleasure. And, your nervous system will start doing things like making you feel tired before making love because it's like, I don't want to do that. Your nervous system will make you contract, And the more that we make love from that place of repressing, the more that our body is now going to associate our partner with not having pleasure with our partner, kind of feeling inundated and overwhelmed by our partner's sexual needs. We're going to feel frustrated when our partner feels sexual desire for us. And it'll start to program this into our body about our partner. And, for lots of couples, there's a whole spectrum. Some couples end up really deep in that spiral, and other couples, maybe somewhere in the middle. But what happens is that the sex becomes less juicy, it becomes less fiery. Your body doesn't get as wet, you don't open naturally. The best thing about feminine sexuality is when our body it opens. It does the opening. It wants to open. And there's nothing more frustrating than when our body won't and it doesn't want to. But that's also the beauty of feminine sexuality is it's alive. And so these are some of the things that you might be experiencing as the feminine. And I know we had a couple that we were working with, and it was such a huge moment when we shared, because she was really experiencing, and I've had this with many clients, but this one in particular I'm thinking of, where she really felt like there was something wrong with her, or something like that she had like wrong with her, that these emotions and these feelings were coming up in the relationship. And it was such a breakthrough when we said, hey, that's what's supposed to happen. Like in sexual alchemy, in true lovemaking, where we're awakening and evolving in relationship, that's actually a good sign. That's a sign that you're in touch with yourself. That's a sign that you're having good lovemaking, because now your body's opening, your heart's opening, your energy field's opening, and life is here. All of the unprocessed emotions, all of the emotions of life, all of the deep-seated things that live in you, that live in the collective, they're all moving through you because you're opening, because you're being penetrated and met, and you're opening. And that's supposed to happen. That's not something wrong. That is it. And that, though, the journey is to actually do that, to learn how to do that. And the relief, hey, that we watched wash over her, like the relief. And I know that in myself, the relief in me when I was like, wait a minute, it's actually about bringing that in. Oh, there's actually a wisdom to why my body is doing that. That is a very different story than the years that I spent beating myself up because what's wrong with me? Why am I not sexual? Why am I not wanting to be sexual? Why is it just feeling more and more icky? And why do I have all these emotions coming up? And just beating myself up. And of course, that's the worst scenario for the feminine, is to beat ourselves up in that.
Yeah, and really speaking that when we say feminine, that's on both sides. That's with all genders, because circling back when I talk about I'm talking just to name, I identify as a man in
A cis man.
yeah,
Yeah.
in a male body. And so I'm speaking from my experience here, and take this however it lands for you. When I've worked with men, my own personal experience, there's still going to be that part of the feminine that needs to bring the feeling. And this is, life altering to understand this piece that both people in sexual alchemy, it's the invitation to bring the feeling. Now there's the dance and learning the polarity and the timing and like following that flow and creating it. And men also really need, and I've found this time and time again, men need to bring the feminine part of themselves to the table and learn how to share and be seen. And the shame is, I'd say, the biggest one that I've witnessed in men, in myself, to bring the shame, to be witnessed in it, and I'd love to hear your feedback. But my experience has been the feminine wants to witness the wholeness of their partner, not just them performing and on point all the time. They want to see all of them. And what I found is that's where the strength is. That's where the courage is to be witnessed in the more vulnerable places. And ironically, is the thing that activates even more capacity to receive and welcome what you're describing. when the openings happen and the more tender parts come in, when the more vulnerable parts come in, it's easier to be present with it if we're also doing that same process. I feel like that's an important piece.
Huge. And I know I've had male clients saying different versions of feeling frustrated because the feminine is expecting him to just be hard and on all the time. But he's actually needing to go into a vulnerability to feel his feelings in order for him to then hold space for the feminine.
And this is where the wisdom of the body will step in. If there, and I found this, and in a minute I'll share a little story, an example of it, is the body will prevent there being that like rock hardness if a part of the more vulnerable, tender places are being avoided. Mm-hmm. It's like the biology be like, ugh. And it's like this pressure and expectation to be something and not welcome all of it. That's how I've noticed it in the body. I know a lot of men that have a lot of pressure on themselves instead of just free and liberated. Like one of my most enjoyable states is just like, we're in the sexual alchemy. All of it's welcome. And that's where the charge is. That's where the excitement. But if there's a part of like, oh no, don't bring that part. What's ironic, and I'll just speak this because one of the symptoms a lot of men speak to is like, I prematurely ejaculate. Well, yeah, if the pressure on you is to perform and be a certain way, and it's so strong, it will actually make your fear manifest. So the fear of premature ejaculation and this pressure to not is going to be the thing that leads to it. But what I found is the most liberating thing is naming that, naming the shame, naming the fears, actually brings in more vitality. It brings in more endurance. And the story I wanted to bring in one of our really early first episodes, I shared this and I'll bring it in again. You know, how this can show up is, you know, when Courtney and I first started dating, we were in Whistler and it's like beautiful, fancy hotel. And in our lovemaking, there was this moment where I felt this hit of shame. And I wanted to just like get rid of it. I wanted to just push it away. And it is the first time I've ever had this experience ever where you could sense it and you invited it. And I tried to wiggle out of there and resist and be like, no. But I felt a safety and I could feel you initiating me into something. And I was like, well, this voice in my head is telling me that I'm going to die if I do this, but I'm just going to go into the shame. And I ended up laying down in the bathroom floor, epic bathroom, big jacuzzi tub. What an image for you to, as you're listening to witness this. Laying down on the bathroom floor, and you just held me while I felt the shame and named the layers that were coming up, and my body shook. I felt cold and clammy and slimy, but then something liberated outside of my system and then had the most endurance, excitement, sexual charge after that. And our lovemaking after that was just incredible. And that's the realm of the sexual alchemy. And this is why we want to invite bringing those more tender places to the table.
Yeah. Because, you know, what was helpful for me is I understood in that moment that lots of women and lots of men don't understand that was a good sign that Mike had an emotion like that coming up. So most of us have been programmed to think we're making love. Oh, you're having shame. Oh, you know, maybe like your partner isn't getting wet or they're not feeling turned on, or, oh, you know, like you're feeling sad. There's something wrong. But I understood that's a good sign that you have emotion coming up because that means you feel safe. That means that our nervous systems are sinking deeper into this connection and this sexual alchemy, and something's ready to move. And so that means, yay, we're doing it. We're in the zone of sexual alchemy. So something's going to arise. Something's going to want to shake loose. And then the practice is, how do we be with that? How do we move towards it? How do we hold it? And because I understood that, I was like, yeah, let's do it. You know, I had done work previously to really work with welcoming everything that was arising in me, in my sexuality. So I sort of had laid that out inside myself. Doesn't mean that I don't still have stuff come up, and I can dive into some of that of, resistance to like, oh God, no, I don't want him to see that or whatever is there. But really, the old lie is, only the sexual energy. And that's what's going to lead to, like men hard, women opening, just be erotic and sexual. And that's what's going to lead to epic sex. And no, that we're here to say that's not true. You could have some epic sex like that, but not sustained, ongoing, alive in daily life sex. What is sexual alchemy? Sexual alchemy is we're going to welcome everything that arises in me, in you, and between us in the realms of pleasure, in the realms of eroticism, in the realms of being sexual with each other. And sometimes that's going to look like holding one of us on the floor while we're both naked while one of us cries. And sometimes that's going to look like me crying while Mike, is penetrating me while I'm orgasming and I'm feeling grief. Sometimes that's going to look like us just laying there and Mike holding my breasts and me holding, his chest, and we just are feeling and breathing together. And there's this whole realm that we get to explore in sexual alchemy, but the goal is not actually orgasm. The goal is, how do we bring all that wants to move and arise in us into pleasure and into connection and into love? And that means being uncomfortable. That means being with those things. And it means both people being willing to embrace whatever emerges and bringing pleasure and to that place, bringing the erotic to that place. And what that does is that allows us to evolve, to grow, to become more whole humans. Whereas the old way, the lies, makes us less and less whole. It makes us more and more repressed and judging ourselves for being human.
Yeah, and to circle back to the example you were giving with one of our clients, our couple of clients, where the guidance was for the feminine in this situation to bring the emotion, to bring the tender parts rather than trying to get rid of them, shut them down. The guidance in that place is for the masculine to welcome it, to be the one encouraging it. This is a really big piece. This is an important piece, that masculine energy leading and guiding that energy to like, yeah, bring all of you. I want to hold all of you, and learning how to tone in the nervous system, the capacity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll name in the beginning for me, when you would open up, let's say we're in just what would be stereotypical hot sex. And then all of a sudden it goes into like, I remember the first time all of a sudden you started crying. I was like, oh God, what did I do? What's happening? And I took it so personal. It invoked so much shame inside of me. Like, what is this about me? Making it about me. And then my remembering is that really impacted your experience of like, oh no, where you almost had to leave what was emerging into like, are you okay? Are you feeling shame? You didn't do anything wrong. And for me, the evolution of that was me understanding like, oh, I want all of you here. This isn't because anything I'm doing wrong. This is because we have this amount of safety. We are hitting these new realms of safety for that next layer to come up. And so now it's like, oh, what an enjoyable, incredible experience for us to be in that place. Let's say after you orgasm and all of a sudden your system goes into a contraction and you're feeling like shy and maybe shame comes up or grief. That fun, playful place of attuning, is this the place where I penetrate into this? Or is this the place where it's like I pull out and lay and hold you to allow that alchemy to happen?
Well, and if I can describe what was going on inside of me when I started to have more emotions coming up in our sexuality. I remember where this felt really tender for me was after I had had a baby. And so there was more stuff I was needing. And then that's where I started to go into some shame about it because it was like, oh no, there's a backlog. Like, it's not like I could feel, I'm not just going to feel one thing and then it's like, yay, now we're like having juicy sex. Oh God, there's a backlog. There's a lot there, this kind of thing. And then I felt really shy and vulnerable about it. And I remember having to really work inside myself because to then, in a way, like my job as the feminine is to teach you, to tell you this is how my body works. This is what my body's doing. So I remember going through that part of the process of me verbalizing, this is what needs to move through me in order for me to be fully here, to fully open, and putting that into words for you. And it took a lot of courage to do it at different times, right? When I would see what it would bring up in you, or, how you could internalize that as something wrong. And really in that moment, it's about you, but it's also just about, it's like a woman speaking to the patriarchy, to the masculine, to the whole collective consciousness. This is a healthy thing. This is what's needed. This is what, is moving through for me to be the most open, juicy feminine you can imagine, and what I feel makes me a good lover is the fact that I'm so good at feeling. It's that I'm so good at surrendering to what's moving through me, But then it's like, yeah, it's a double-edged sword because it's like, I'm so good at feeling, I'm so good at surrendering to what's there that then I can open and be this, divine lover that can just like bring you in so deeply. But then the double-edged sword of that is like, oh, and there's a lot of feelings in there. There's a lot of personal feelings between us, like stuck feelings that are in my hips and in my womb and in my yoni that need to move. And then also collective emotions that are like astrological at that time, or whatever's going on collectively, just like moving through. Because for me, when I go into that place of sexuality, in this sacred alchemy, I'm becoming the ocean. I'm not Courtney anymore. I'm literally just surrendered into the bigness of the mystery. It's, in this way, I really feel like the feminine, it's a deep shamanic journey we're on, because it's like we're going in and our job is to just be with and feel everything that moves through. And and also, how do we put that into words for the masculine? And I think this is a piece that the feminine needs to learn and work on, is you have to be able to recognize the health in yourself to then tell the masculine, no, you didn't do anything wrong. This is just right. And then now this is what I need to move through to be in that stream of life, to let that stream of life, the wisdom of my body, the wisdom of the feminine to move through me.
And how much we need that. That's the pathway of initiation. Like when I think of going back to that place of what makes you a good lover, yes, you feel. And the piece that I'd add on top of that is you're going to speak what's true for you. Mm-hmm. And you're going to guide what's true for you. So if that's, sharing the uncomfortable thing, like let's say I'm all in and my energy wants to keep like penetrating and maybe let's say go faster in your body, your initiation is, I need us to stop. Like I need us to slow down. Like that's such an initiation to give, to be able for you to be able to open up and then meet that energy that is in the forward movement, to meet it and be like, oh no, like what a gift for us. And I'd say, for all the feminine listening, my invitation is bring the truth, bring the uncomfortable truth, because it does give the ingredients to be initiated. A lot of us men don't even know that there's a place that's like being numbed out or repressed or shut down or put on the shelf. deeply at our soul level. Maybe on the biological level, you might get different feedback, but on the soul level, that's what we're looking for.
Mhm.
Like, let me know what you need so that I can learn how to love you there, so I can learn how to satisfy you there. Like, that's been such a gift for me, for you to say the ingredients like this, like that. Now I notice what's alive in my system is my orientation is great. How do I bring the sexual pleasure in what's here? So sometimes it'll be, getting creative and being like, wow, can I rub your body while you feel that grief? I'm here. Let me feel that grief. Oh, yeah. And it's moving towards it instead of away from it.
Yeah. Well, and one of the keys that I want to really name here is for the feminine. And this is part of our second point, right? Is like, what does this look like? How do we do this? Is that requires three things. One is it requires us welcoming inside of ourselves and being really present with what's moving through, right? So that we can be present with it. It also requires us that when we make a request, that we really express it as a desire and not a criticism. So, not, oh, why would you do that? Or, oh, you're going too fast. Or, oh, that doesn't feel good. And instead, ooh, go a little bit slower. Yeah, just like that. Oh, I love that movement. Oh, could you move a little bit more like this? And so it's like doing it in a desire way and not a critical way, which, is such a practice, because if we start to get critical, and I've done in my first relationship, was so critical, and it just shut him down so bad, because of course, how could that not? Um, so we have to be able to express it as a desire and in a relational way. And then the other thing is, I want to describe what this is, what I'm doing inside of myself for the sexual alchemy, because, and this is really key, right? Because yes, I'm bringing Mike in to bring me pleasure. I'm bringing him in to give me things that will help me alchemize what's moving, but I also have to be doing that inside myself. Like, I have to be inside going, okay, where's the grief? Where's the rage? Where's that shame, that contraction? And where can I feel pleasure? So, what I'm doing inside is I'm tracking for both all the time. I'm tracking for where the sticky parts are, where emotions are, and I'm tracking for where the pleasure is. And so, maybe, what can happen for me sometimes after orgasm is my body can go into a contraction. And I've been working with that. And so I'm with the contraction, but at the same time, I'm going, I can feel the reverberation of the orgasm in my yoni. And oh, my legs are feeling really good. Whoa. And when I look at Mike, like, and I smell him right now, there's this like rush of ecstasy that moves through my body. So I'm always tracking both, because the reason this is important is I have to be bringing the pleasure in to meet whatever's arising inside myself in order for me to then receive pleasure from Mike. Like, if I'm not in touch with my inner pleasure, if I'm not working with that inside, and I'm just fully in the contraction or the emotion or whatever's there, and then expecting him to be the one to bring all the pleasure, to activate all the pleasure, not that he can't, but I have to be in relationship with it. And so that's a really key part. That's a really key part. And the better I've gotten at that, the more that I've noticed the sexual alchemy happens with ease. And the more when Mike brings an ingredient, then I get so aroused so easily, because I'm already in relationship with my pleasure.
Yeah, beautiful. And in the role of the masculine, the way that I orient is, and this is a really big one for men, the old, going back to like the stories we tell ourselves or the construct that we adopt in sex is, oh, the name of the game is get the woman to orgasm. Like, that's an unhelpful belief or orientation. So how I orient inside is I'm guiding and leading my own energy and my own pleasure. It's my role and responsibility to lead how I want to experience myself and my body, and attuning to you. I feel like the old construct is just attuning to the feminine. what does she need? Hyper focus, this hyper vigilance of like, what do you need?
Well, either that or the opposite
Or
of just self.
of just self.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for you, it was because you have a kind heart, but I think there's also the masculine who's just self.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's both. There's the we'll say the grandiose lover who is only in the narcissistic lover who's only worried about just getting off
Yeah.
and really not hot. And then the other where it's like the nice guy lover who's in there just trying to figure out all the ways to give you everything that you need, and it's all about you.
Which, by the way, is not sexy. The feminine cannot get turned on by that.
And can feel it.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
And so
there's nothing sexier than when you're in touch with your pleasure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the fun part, because attuning to both, so me feeling my biology, my body, my pleasure, and being like, how do I want to feel in this? And then what do I want to penetrate you with? Like, how do I want to offer what I'm feeling in my body into you? And then attuning, how's it being received? Like, that's the part. It's attuning. What is the relational energetic feedback of what I'm penetrating with? And then getting curious of how I want to take that and move with it. I feel like that's an important piece, to not get lost in, oh, self-pleasure, oh, just to get what it is that you're needing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so sexy. When you can do both, it's like golden. It's the best. And really, we're both doing that. I'm hearing we're both tracking for this other and you know, and for me, I'll describe another layer of that. For me is I'm really focused on receiving whatever Mike wants to offer. And it's interesting because it's not just like collapsing and receiving. It's actually opening and receiving, like, show me what you want to offer me. And me just really practicing, not controlling that, not trying to manipulate it or make it something different, but actually receiving what it is. And there's this place of like really just attuning and how can I show him how much I love what I'm receiving? You know, which requires asking for what I need, but also just receiving what it is he's giving, and that really like giving feedback through sound, through body movement, through eye contact, through words. And feedback is really important for the masculine. Is the more the feminine can embody the feedback through voice, through sound, through movement in an ongoing way, and really going into it in a big way, like ecstatic dance style, you know, just like surrender and let it move through you. That is going to turn the masculine on. That's going to give him lots of feedback. And then the moment that something's not feeling right, giving feedback, then it's this beautiful feedback loop, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's working. And I want to circle back again in the, you know, that masculine role, because there can be this place where I know for me where I lose my tone and I go, like, maybe some shame comes up or some insecurity or inadequacy. This is the fun practice too, is learning when to go into it and then learning when to guide and activate and call forward what I call king energy or warrior energy. It's like, oh, this is a lot of energy. Here's this fear inside of me. Yeah, where's the alpha in me? Where's the alpha in me? And tapping into that and calling that forward into sex. Because what I'd say is that in the beginning of relationship, what can be very predictable and common is there's so many procreation hormones that it's really easy to just be in the animalistic, confident lovemaking. And then as time goes on, there's been studies that prove this by asking and inquiring with men that one of the biggest fears for men is rejection. So when they move into this realm of sexual energy, it's like it can be more, there is more of a tenderness, can be. And so there can be this fear of being rejected in what's being offered. And it's this invitation to be initiated into calling other energies forward and showing up. like, oh yeah, I can be with this. How do I need to move it? And, as an example in mine, I'll be like, I'll get into my primal body and I'll bring some animalistic sounds and move it through my voice, like move it through my body. And I'll like almost inside of myself move through the part that wants to like shy away. And it's like penetrate through that to penetrate you.
Beautiful. And, for the feminine, this is often where couples ping, right? Because if I feel him, the masculine, shying away or being afraid of rejection, for the feminine, the most sexy thing is when she feels pursued and feels the masculine wanting to move towards her. And so if she feels him shying away, then that can really it can bring out anger, it can bring out frustration, it can bring out like, well, I'm just not turned on. And so one of the things that I've really learned to do, because what I used to do in previous relationships, especially my first relationship, is when I'd feel that, I would want to talk about it. Hey, well, I'm noticing you're pulling away. Like, what's that about? And then inevitably the masculine would be like, oh God. And then it would just turn into a mental conversation. And what I've learned to do instead now is that's the time for me to turn on my pleasure and show it really obviously. So instead of going into it, it's like, okay, so if I want to bring him in and I want him to move through that part that's feeling a bit insecure, how can I moan a little or move my hips a little more or do something in relationship to my own inner pleasure that he's going to feel and that's going to pull him out? And this is my inner practice, and I don't do it perfect every time, but this is my inner practice. Sometimes I forget. And my version now is I don't try to talk about it. I get frustrated. And I'm learning though to just, and then I'm like, oh yeah. Embody my pleasure, show it.
Oh, when you bring it in an embodied way, it is so sexy. And I notice it becomes, I can feel more of like my animal body come alive and like, oh yeah. And it becomes this game of like, how can I take this energy and then like bring more of that king forward and like learn how to like, yeah, penetrate through it, around it. And it's like it becomes more of this fun game, which I find actually ends up creating more like endurance and pleasure in me too, when I can feel it embodied.
And so if you can hear in this, what we're saying is, if you can hear this, is we're letting go of any, we need to get here, we need to get there, and we're being present. We're allowing whatever's alive, and then we're learning to maneuver with what's alive through both being vulnerable and authentic, and also through, cultivating pleasure. And so I'd love to go into this final point of, well, how do you create sexual alchemy? What is that? And I'm going to share for me how I understand this. For me, this is passionate union. This is Christ consciousness. This is this place of union. And for me, I remember the first time that we went into this so deeply, where I was getting the hang of that shame piece, right? Where I would orgasm, I'd go into contraction shame, and I was getting the hang of it. And then Mike was like, well, what happens if I just move into you, in the shame? Because I would go into the shame and then I'd feel shame about the shame, right? And it would just be this. And I was naming it, this is what comes, like, oh, I'm feeling so shy. And then,
so just to name, because some way in the beginning, how it would end is like we would stop, like, yes. Oh, I need to stop. And then there would almost be shame. Yeah. Remembering about that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sorry.
Even though the shame was coming up because we were reaching such a deep level of sexual intimacy that a deep layer was unthawing. And then because we were going so deep into this really deeply connected emotional sexual experience. And then this deeper layer was coming up, and then I was feeling shame about that. And so we started to, play around with, okay, so Mike's going to just keep penetrating me while I'm being with it. So while I'm feeling the shame, while I'm expressing it, while I'm even speaking it, while I'm crying and putting words to it, he's going to bring pleasure. And I cannot tell you how deep of a healing experience I had in that, because all the parts of me that felt shame, when he's coming that deep inside me, when he's meeting me that deeply, he's penetrating and moving right inside of me while I'm feeling this deep, shameful feeling. suddenly none of that could hold on in any way. It just completely let go. And the the amount of love I've never felt up till that point. I had never felt that amount of love move in me so deeply in my physiology, and there was no part of my body that could deny your love for me, because you were and you were delivering pleasure. And it was really beautiful that first time to really feel, you know, how sexy that was, and how we didn't leave the sexiness, even though there was this vulnerable part. And for me, that opened up a whole new realm of our sexual intimacy, of what if we keep going hard in like pleasure and penetration and like eroticism while that part is moving. Um and it alchemized, it healed me in a very deep core place.
Mm.
And also made space for way more sexual pleasure.
Yeah, I remember that first experience in that way so vividly. And what a gift that was. Like, the word that comes up for me as I hear and feel you there is just like honor. Like, what an honor to get witness for, like, what I like to use here is like me getting to be Shiva sitting front row to Shakti. It's like getting the gift of making it through the gates to witness that level of vulnerability while still getting to penetrate you and bring you pleasure. And I remember inside of me there was this choice point, and there's the part that wanted to offer, because I had to work through. I'm like, I'm gonna offer to keep going instead of the norm of this is where we just stop. I lay next to you, wait till you've moved through it. And what a terror at first it was to invite it, but for you to say yes and trust me, and for us to then attune to each other. Like, that's what I felt, the alchemy part that we're talking about. There was an alchemical moment where we both just surrendered to the wisdom inside of us, like the spirit, the soul, to show up in that experience and talk about the ultimate initiation. Because what I found in that is getting to still penetrate you while that shame was there. And what I remember is I came in closer. I remember like starting to rub your face, like put my thumb over your eyebrows and just like offer over like that, the deeper nurturing felt sense of this is welcome. This shame is welcome.
Oh my God. And so fucking sexy when you're going into a part and you know that there's like, you as the feminine know, my body is wise. I am the ocean. Like, this is medicine. And I know that, but I don't trust that the masculine knows that. And then to have the masculine move towards me and say, hey, I want that. And to watch you feel pleasure while I was surrendering to that inside of me was so sexy, and it continues to be so sexy when you're so confident and you move towards, you want to meet me in that. Because for me, then what I feel is you see that I'm the medicine woman. You see that this isn't like, oh, I have this little emotion, and you're like, you're the wild feminine, you're the medicine woman, you're the wise oracle. And when you see me like that and you trust whatever's moving through me, then I can fully trust your full power in how you penetrate me. And that is sexy.
Oh, and then on my side, I'm getting chills just as I feel you with that. It's so empowering. It initiates me every time into a deeper level of maturity and a part of myself that I hadn't experienced, of like, wow, for me to be able to do this, to meet this, to offer this, and to feel so much pleasure in it, to feel then your pleasure come through the shame, and then it lead to a whole nother like realm. Like, what I find, and I remember that, is like there was that moment, but then that birthed a whole new zone where things did get to pick up. And it's like, whoa, like it's, it makes me think of snake medicine. Like, we both shed skins there and entered in new terrain. where we were both experiencing more pleasure, and talk about, like, to give some incentive for the masculine listening. What I found from this is it helps me lead so much more with my clients, my business, my own energy, and my own responsibilities in the day to day every time I can meet you in those places.
Mm.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, yay, I get to just trust what moves through me. I get to just receive and trust what moves through me, and then receive you, and cultivate pleasure. And it activates my oracle. It activates my sense of surrender to life, which is such a gift as a mom, as a partner, as a creator, as a medicine woman. It initiates me. It brings it all into wholeness.
Yeah. In that piece we were talking about in the beginning, thanks for making your way till this point, of like those life activating orgasms come from these experiences. And I keep finding that time and time again where, especially on the masculine side, not just ejaculation orgasms, I'm talking like body orgasms where there's sensations rippling through my whole system.
Mm-hmm.
That's exciting.
Well, and isn't it? It's so beautiful too, because, when the feminine can allow whatever needs to move through her body, then her pelvis, her sacrum, everything can open more. And we've been amazed at, whoa, I'm opening even more. I didn't even know that you could enter in deeper, because it didn't even feel like and that's because I'm feeling everything that's opening the cells. And then my body is actually opening more. It's opening more and more into spaces that I didn't even know could open. And that's always a magical moment for us when, I can let you in even deeper. And then what that feels like in me is now my body is actually open to life that much. Like my body, I notice now I can receive pleasure and money and love and care and attention from so many other places, not just from you, not just from sexuality, not just sexuality, through I'm trying to get
Sorry, we just had
an interruption.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to
We had somebody bring.
Oh yeah. Like I get to open to all these other things because of what is being awoken and activated in me through the sexuality, and getting to explore all different kinds of orgasm and pleasure. And all of that is teaching me how to be with the pleasure of life, and to become more supple and relaxed and playful and seductive. Like I want to seduce life, Thank you for continuing to initiate me in that.
It's my pleasure. And I just, going back to that place where your body drops into deeper surrender and safety. Like there's your physical biology where I feel that happening, but I can feel that energetically where you were emotionally like, fucking take me.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go there, the amount of pleasure that invokes in me, not just in my body, and this, like, circling back to the beginning, I find that there's a realm of sex that can be pleasure. The sensations and the pleasure are great. What I'm experiencing is there's a new realm where my soul is satisfied, my mind is satisfied, my body is satisfied, like on every part of me, parts that I didn't even know existed. There's satisfaction there. Mm-hmm. And to feel you open that much, and to me make my way through whatever that is to meet you there and us be there together, like that for me feels like the union of like, wow, I'm meeting God here. Like that's how it feels for me. And wow. And I noticed then, when how that ripples out into life, like that activates me in so many ways, where the words that I'll use often is like, oh God, I just want to fuck life. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, life, like all of it, all the feelings, all the experiences. I want to welcome all of it, because what you, and thank you, Courtney, for initiating me in this, is you're giving me the lived, felt sense of what it means to welcome all of life. It helps me develop my emotional maturity, it helps me develop presence, helps me develop attunement. And with all of those ingredients, I become a safer man in the world. And there's no greater feeling as a man to be experienced as safer, a safe man who can offer over more joy, pleasure, satisfaction. That is the ultimate freedom and victory. So thank you for that.
And now we get to play around with, retention, like you're retaining and working with these different layers of sexual play that are a part of, like for Mike and I, as we close, for us, our erotic life has been a constant that just keeps expanding and deepening. And it is a huge resource for us because we can keep leaning into it in whatever life is throwing our way. We can keep leaning into that practice. And it's always a mirror of where we're at in our relationship, where we're at in our creativity. And there's so much alchemy for us that comes from our our sex life together, that then initiates us being able to show up in our mission and in this evolutionary way as parents. And I feel really grateful to be in a relationship that is not only sustaining that passionate experience, but that I authentically, and I remember as a woman longing for this, and I authentically am having it, that authentically when Mike walks in a room, my body is turned on because I have cultivated enough pleasure with him that my body equates Mike with pleasure. That my body equates you with pleasure. And so you don't have to do very much for me to feel pleasure, because to my body, you are pleasure. And I longed for that experience, where I wasn't trying. And that's because we have learned how to welcome all of each other, and we keep doing this alchemy that now my body just, it's like, ooh, life just entered the room. I feel turned on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what an enjoyable place to be. I love getting to experience this in our day to day, where it's like, whew, it's like just getting up in the day is exciting. It's invigorating. Not that there's not days that are hard, but
Yeah.
there's this, yeah, being parents and entrepreneurs, like all the layers, like it's not all rainbows and butterflies, but whoa, the overarching,
Obviously.
yeah. Courtney's pointing to her black
My
eye.
black eye.
For those of you that are listening. And there is this golden thread of satisfaction and pleasure I haven't experienced in previous relationships, where I want to keep showing up for myself, for life, for my clients. And it's incredible. And I've watched this in our online community where, prior to the practice that we guide our couples into in this,
the calls,
on the calls, like there is this, sometimes there's just a little bit more distance. There's, the doings of the day are present. It's palpable in the physical embodiment.
Little hurts that are
Little hurts, little misses, just like
shyness.
Yeah. But wow, when we drop down in intentional space, and this is the alchemy piece, when we drop down and commune together with the intention to nurture what we describe as the soul of the relationship.
In the calls, we invite all the couples to dive into a practice.
Yeah. And then in these calls, we then go into practice after teachings. And then, wow, like especially this last Monday call, just watching couples like just hop into each other's laps, and where there's this energy where they want to be making out and rubbing each other, like caressing each other. It's so visible that these ingredients, where we can welcome more of each other, just does amplify that sexual energy. It amplifies that desire to be with each other, be in each other.
Yeah, it's really cool to watch that every time we do a practice, to move through layers, to be more present, to deal with stuff that might be uncomfortable or beautiful or all of it, that then the sexual energy on the call is just there. It's just now there's sexual energy here. And it's cool for us to get to witness that and be like, yeah, this is it. This is the alchemy. This is how it happens.
Yeah, it's so enjoyable on the facilitation side to watch that happen. Just the like glowing, radiant, blushing faces and, open, present eyes. And yeah.
It's
So
the best job ever.
it really is. It really is. And so, that if that's something that you're feeling called to, check it out. If you scroll down in the show notes, there will be a link there for our community. And you too can experience that. It is so enjoyable. And what I have found is being in a space with couples who are actively cultivating that, it's amplified us. And I notice it brings even more of that desire to fuck life. Yeah. So thank you all for tuning in. So grateful. If you found this episode helpful in any way, we'd really appreciate that you give a 5-star rating. So go up, click that 5-star. It really helps this podcast reach other people. So that would be so appreciated. Thank you all for tuning in. Till next time.